$800 plus a $400 in rent. I wasn't paying a mortgage. Finally, I felt like I was like living the high life, even though really we were still house poor. I'm like standing in my backyard thinking about it. And I was like, I think our backyard is actually pretty big. And so I was like, babe, I think we should build a tiny house back here.
That is the superhero origin story of Robuilt.
Honestly, I wasn't really ever that typical like Gary V, like, you gotta hustle. You're working for someone else. You stupid. I wasn't like that. Like, my goodness, bro. Yeah. The cleaning fees is just to like talk about that for a quick second. But you got me all fired up now. But that is the world I live in.
Just here to poke the bear. Hey friends, Andy here from the YouTube channel, your friend Andy, and today on the podcast, a podcast where I like to talk to people I would call self-starters, self-made successful people. I have Robert Abasolo, otherwise known as Robuilt. Now, Rob has built an empire, a content empire, YouTube, real estate, Airbnb, all kinds of stuff in the world of online business and real life business to the tune of $6 million in revenue last year. But he would give it all up for a lifetime supply of Chipotle burritos. Hello, Robert.
Hello. Am I allowed to speak now?
You can speak.
Okay, because you were very direct before. You're like, hey, when I'm doing the intro, do not talk. And I was like, okay.
Have two rules. Never interrupt the intro and don't embarrass me in front of my friends.
And I was like, oh, this is a bit. And you're like, it's not.
It's not a bit.
And then I was like, okay. But here we are. Most of what you said is true.
Thanks for being here in your office.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, mi oficina es su oficina, as my people would say.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Take over your space and completely rearrange your space.
We did. Yeah. You came in and I was like, oh yeah, we'll set up a camera here. And then you're like, I have notes. And then for the last 8 hours or so, we've just been tweaking, and we installed this whole soundboard to the right here and mounted a few lights.
And when Rob says we've been tweaking, I mean, I kind of stood over there and told him what to do, and then he moved stuff around.
That's right.
So
happy to do it. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it.
What is the name of your podcast for those that are listening to this for the first time and maybe didn't read the title of the podcast?
Andy and Friends. But I don't say it very often because I don't know. Am I going to keep that name, Andy and Friends?
Oh, I see. So you're hedging your bets.
I don't know. It's still, I actually started this channel like maybe a year ago or close to it, but I haven't done a full year's worth of podcast episodes yet.
Well, let's crank out 52 today, and then we can at least have the year built out. And then a year from now, you can reassess if you want to do...
What should my podcast be called, Rob?
Well, what is it about?
As the intro said, I like to talk to people who I call self-starters.
Okay. So we want it to feel friendly. We want people to know that it's you. So maybe like Andy's friends.
Very good. I definitely want it to be people who I enjoy talking to. I don't know if I'm going to make it an open platform for anybody, even if I hate their guts. I just like, it's too casual to spend your life doing that.
Well, I hope that you like me, and I hope that I can bring the juice for all the Indecians that are watching.
Speaking of, let's crack open the Rob juice and take a sip.
Please, as I take a sip. By the way, this is brought to you by Poppy Soda.
Yes. I would, yes.
Can't cut that out.
Speaking of who this is brought by, a quick word from this episode's sponsor. If you're like me, then you're either a small business owner or you would like to start your own business one day. And when you do that, you're going to need a banking solution that's truly built just for your business. That means no fees, no minimum balances, and no bookkeeping problems when tax season rolls around, because why would you want to make tax season even less fun? That's where Relay comes in. Relay is an online banking and money management platform that's a perfect fit for small businesses, and one I recommend. Again, Relay has no account fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balances, which means you get to keep more in your pocket. One of my favorite features is that you can get up to 20 individual accounts, including 2 savings accounts, to organize and allocate income for things like day-to-day expenses, investments, or taxes. You can now earn up to 3% APY on savings with Relay savings accounts. You can create virtual and physical debit cards for you and your employees in seconds. And best of all, Relay makes your bookkeeping speedy and meticulous by giving you ultra-detailed transaction data and directly syncing it back to QuickBooks Online and Xero. And so many more amazing features I don't have time to tell you about here. Really, they do a lot. It only takes 10 minutes to apply for a free Relay account, and you can do it online at relayfi.com/yourfriendandy. Again, that is relayfi.com/yourfriendandy. Okay, let's jump into this episode. And we're back with Rob of Robuilt. So, Rob, let's start with the basics. I know a lot of this story, but a lot of people might not. Walk me back before Airbnb, before YouTube, before all this stuff, when you're still doing copywriting or ad work or whatever. And then kind of walk me into just the basics of how you got into this whole new world and new business.
Yeah, so formally, I am an advertising copywriter. So it basically means it's writing WRITE, not RIGHT. Important designation, because when I would tell people I was a copywriter, they would be like, "Oh, you're the guy that does like the little R ball at the end of logos," and I was like, "That's not what I do."
Is that their best description of it?
Yeah, exactly.
You're the guy that does the R balls?
The TM, right? And so I actually wrote words for ads. So anything that you would like, I used to write for Gatorade. Then I wrote for Hyundai and Sonic and Old Smoky Moonshine, and I specifically wrote like all of their tweets and Facebook posts and Instagram posts and everything like that. And I did that for about 10 years. And my first starting salary, I remember thinking, man, I'm going to be so rich. And I was making $40,000 right out the gate. And very quickly realized that that was not enough money to live on. Like after you considered, because my wife was a nanny, she was making like $12 an hour. I was making $40K. And I remember thinking like, all right, man, as soon as she was in grad school at the time. And I was like, as soon as she graduates and she's making $40,000, then we're really going to be banking. And really, it's not how it panned out, man. I mean, it's like not nothing, of course, right? But at that time, we had $1,000 mortgage payment. We had $1,000 to student loans. And then we probably paid like $1,000 to credit cards because we were in like $15,000, $20,000 of credit card debt. And so after that, and then expenses like utilities and food, we were bringing home like $1,000 a month. Not saving. That was just what was always revolving in our bank account. And so I was always the guy that was always looking for money. I always wanted money. I always wanted to find out how to make money. I was always hustling, as you say. And all my friends, like from high school through all of my corporate life friends, always made fun of me because I was like the cheap guy, you know? And I was always the guy that was like staking out in front of the meeting rooms that had like lunch catered. And I would wait for them. Like, I'd be like, all right, meeting should be over in like 2 minutes. And then I'm going to run to the kitchen and I'm going to get the leftover barbecue. And I did that every day for like many years. And so they all gave me shit for it. I hope I can cuss on your pod. Yes. That's a bad one.
Profanity.
You know? Yeah, exactly. Potty mouth. But they would always give me shit for it. And I did that for many years. And so eventually I did this thing called, I had this buddy who was thinking about moving to Kansas City. Really was more like, hey, we need an intern. You should move up here. And he was like, great, let's do it. So we'd owned this house. We bought it for $159,000 and our mortgage was like $1,100. So really not a ton because our rent in the apartment before that was like $800 a month. So we were like, yeah, another $200 and we'll own this thing. Didn't realize we were going to be so house poor, but we were. And I convinced this friend to move up to Kansas City. And I'm like, all right, dude. He's like, where am I going to live? I'm like, you can live in one of our rooms, all bills paid, for $400 a month. And then he was like, yeah, that sounds great. And I was like, sounds good. And then I remember he like Venmoed me $400 and I was like, I'm the richest man in the world right now. Because now, not only I was used to paying $1,100 in rent every single month, and now I was paying like $800 or whatever, $700. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually making money compared to when I was like living in this little dinky apartment. And so that's actually called house hacking. And that's the art of renting out your space, like a room or a space or a living room or a dungeon or a basement, whatever, to someone else and using that rent to subsidize your mortgage. And that's eventually
especially towards your dungeons.
Especially towards your dungeons and your closets of sorts. That really kicked off what I think was like any amount of wealth that I have. I always attribute it to that. That's the catalyst for me.
So I feel like I've talked to lots of people who, when they start their new business, they do the new thing. And that first time, in your case, maybe that $400 Venmo or whatever, like that is the moment when it all becomes real. Was that a significant aha moment?
Oh, definitely. You know, that Venmo, like, ching, like that was the soundtrack of my life, you know, moving forward. I was like, I need to hear that sound all the time. And so I was like, how else can I utilize my house to make money? And this house was in Kansas City. So like in Tornado, I don't know if Tornado Alley, but in Tornado World. So they had basements. And I remember...
Can that be the name of something? Tornado World?
Well, you got to subsidize your rent by renting out tornado basements, you know? And so I basically ended up asking myself, how else can I make money? And I thought about renovating the basement and renting that out. But we had a wet basement, so that wasn't an option. Basically meaning that when it rains, it all goes into the basement. And I was like, all right, but what else could I do? And so we were always on a budget with furniture. I was always getting stuff off of Craigslist, but I remember I was really into like pipe furniture. That was like such a big thing like 8 years ago. And I remember looking on Etsy and being like, all right, I'm going to buy one. I mean, how expensive could it be? And it was like $800 for a coffee table. And I was like, I can't, what? No way. This thing was like $80 to make. And so I was like, I'm going to make it myself. I had never touched a tool in my life, but I was like, I'm going to try it. So I went and I looked up YouTube tutorials, and like I was in my basement for like a month, like doing all this stuff. And then I remember my wife and her friends were up in the living room, and I was like finished, and I like didn't know they were up there, but I came up and I like plopped it down, and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I just made this table. And they were like, oh, okay. And they all come over and they're like, oh my God, this table, you made this? And my wife was like, you didn't make this. I was like, what do you think I've been doing for the last month? I've been in the basement 3 hours. I made it. And she was like, that's really good. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. And so I was like, well, this guy sold it on Etsy for $800. Maybe I could just toss it on Craigslist and put it on Craigslist for $400 and sold it in like a day. And I was like, okay, there is a business here, I think. And so eventually went on to build furniture and sell it on Etsy, pipe furniture. And I was making like $800 a month, which again, big money for me at that time, because $800 plus $400 in rent. I wasn't paying a mortgage. Finally felt like I was like living the high life, even though really we were still house poor, but now we had an extra $1,200 a month, you know?
Almost 10 grand extra per year if that didn't exist previously.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is the superhero origin story of Robuilt.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that was initially the first time that I tried to make money was like in the 8th grade. And there was this infomercial for this vitamin company called The Greatest Vitamin in the World. And it was like an affiliate program. If you sold 20 of them, they were like $50 for a bottle, you would get $1,000. And it's like, well, how do they make money on it? They're going to make $1,000 on the sales. And they're like, well, we just care about the marketing and the brand awareness. So I went and sat my dad at a restaurant. I was like, all right, Dad, I need to do this. It's like $200 to enroll and all this stuff. He's like, all right, I support you. Did not make any money from it, but I did like the grind of always like, you know, being an entrepreneur and just being the person that got to control the money, you know, like what my paycheck was going to be.
So you had a little taste of entrepreneurship, a little taste of like doing your own thing early, but then you still went the traditional route. And so like, why did you deviate from that? And then what was one of the big impetuses of working the full-time job and then going like, I don't want a boss anymore?
Yeah. So, you know, honestly, I wasn't really ever that typical, like Gary V, like you gotta hustle. You're working for someone else. You stupid. You know, I wasn't like that. Like
only 2 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah. Like I liked my job. I liked my career, but honestly, I was just never really that good at it. Like I was good, but I wasn't great. And I knew I would never be great. Like there were people in my office and in my peers that like you met them and you're like, holy shit, like this person is a copywriter or this person is like an art director. Like they are from another planet kind of thing. And then I'd look at myself and be like, yeah, I'll never be as good as them. And like, there's this sort of like pressure to like, be like, no, yeah, you will. Like, you're going to be great at it. Like, you just keep, like, that's kind of like the corporate, like, hey, you just got to work hard and blah, blah, blah. And I think I just knew that wasn't true. Like, no matter what, I was never going to be as good as those guys. But that was fine. I wasn't really ever bummed about it. I just knew that maybe, like, it was hard to, like, I felt like I wanted to be a creative director and I wanted to do this, like, thing in advertising, but I was just never that good at it. And so, and I also wasn't making that much money doing it. So we moved from Kansas City to LA, and I managed to double my salary from 40 to 80K. And then during that job is when I was living in LA, and my wife also doubled her salary basically from like 40 to 75K. So we're making like 150, 160, somewhere like that. A lot more money than we were making. Not a lot of money in LA, but like it is not bad, right? And so we had basically gotten this apartment that was $1,800. It was 600 square feet. And that extra $800 that we were paying in rent was definitely offset by our raises, right? So like I said, like we were comfortable, but we weren't like balling, right? We could go out to eat maybe like once or twice a month. And so after living in this apartment, which was $1,850 a month, it was 666 square feet. I don't know. I just got tired of paying a landlord and paying like almost $2,000 for this, like literally something that's the size of this studio. And I told my wife, I was like, look, we bought this house in Kansas City. We sold it. We made a $40,000 profit. And I was like, she wanted to pay off our student loans. And I was like, no, let's not do that. And she was like, are you crazy? Like this is our ticket. I'm like, I know, but I think there's something greater for this money and I don't know what it is, but I want to have it. And so we had it in our bank account and I was like, let's buy a house. And she was like, what, are you crazy? I was like, absolutely. And she's like, can we afford it? I was like, definitely not. And I was like, but I think if we find, like, it worked so well for us to house hack and like rent it to our buddy in Kansas City, maybe we can find a house that we can house hack. And so she was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. So we look and we end up finding this house that has like a 279 square foot studio underneath. And I was like, heard about this thing where you could basically rent that room on a website and strangers would like pay you money for it every night. Mm-hmm. And that obviously is airbnb.com. And I was like looking up comps in the area, comparable like rents.
What year was this, by the way?
2017.
Okay, 2017.
And so I calculated that if I had listed it on Airbnb, I could make like $2,000 or $3,000 a month, like in like gross revenue. And so I was like, that would basically like slice 50 to 75% of our mortgage. Like we could rent the other. We're already paying $1,800 a month. And so she was like, well, what are we going to do with the apartment? We still have 6 months left in our lease. And I was like, yeah, we'll also list that on Airbnb and we'll let the lease run out. And when it runs out, whatever, we'll like live in this house. So she was like, do you think it'll work? And I was like, I have no idea, but I think so. I was like, if we can just break even, like I'm good to go. And so we list that apartment on Airbnb and I get a $1,500 reservation like next day or something like that. And I was like, that was for like 14 days, something. And so I was like, holy crap, if I book the other 14 days, I'll make like $1,000 or $1,500. And the guy was supposed to check in and he cancels his reservation like an hour before. And I was like, I will never financially recover from this. Cause I was like, holy crap, like we don't have that kind of money, Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like 30 minutes or an hour later, someone else booked it for like more. And so for that same day, they're like, hey, my family's coming in town, here's $1,600, something like that. And I was like, what? Like, what? How did that happen? So that was kind of the day that I was like, oh, I'll be a millionaire from Airbnb. Like that was sort of the big, like, aha, like, whoa, man, what? Mm-hmm. Really? I can make $1,000 a month doing this? So when you married that with the house money that I was making on the studio, $2,000 to $3,000, I was making $1,000 to $2,000 on that apartment. I was living mortgage free. Again, another catalyst for all my wealth. Anything that I built all comes down to the fact that I was house hacking.
Yeah. And so that then you kind of got this taste, I guess, of Airbnb money. You got mm-hmm. The dealer gave you a little taste. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah.
And so you then took what I think a lot of people, maybe even yourself, would look back and go, a bit of a risk, and built a tiny house up utility unit or whatever you're going to call it in your backyard. So maybe you could tell me a little bit, just a shorter version of that, like how you built that, how you financed it, and then like what the end result was.
Yeah. So I'm making $2,000-$3,000, right? And I'm like, well, man, how can I replicate this? Mm-hmm. I've shown 2 times that I'm making thousands of dollars. What if I did it 3 times, right? Or like, at this point I was making $3,000 or $4,000 a month, right? And so I was just like, man, if I did that 10 times, I'm making like $30,000-$40,000 a month, right? And so I'm like sitting in my backyard thinking about it, and I was like, I think our backyard is actually pretty big. Like it's a 6,500 square foot lot, and I was like, I think we could probably fit a tiny house back there. And so I was like, babe, I think we should build a tiny house back here. And she was like, you don't know how to do that. I'm like, I know, but I like built tables and I remodeled our studio. And I think if I use that knowledge and like YouTube and all that kind of stuff, if I look up Robuilt on YouTube, maybe he'll teach me how to do it. And so she was like, all right, if you think you can do it, I was like, yeah, let's try it. So I ended up thinking I was going to build this tiny house for $40,000. Told another friend, I was like, dude, move from Kansas City to LA. It's going to take me like two weeks to bang this house out. And you can stay in the in the guest bedroom. And it'll be done. And you can move in. And he's like, man, it sounds great. So he moves up to LA, ends up living in our guest bedroom for 13 months. And it ends up costing $76,000 or $72,000 to build. Way over budget. Had to kick my crew out halfway through and say, hey, I'm out of money. Love you, but you got to go. And then I finished it myself and then ended up renting that on Airbnb and did really well with that too.
how did you finance that difference between what you expected it to be and what it actually ended up costing?
So there's this like amazing thing. It's called like a credit card, and they let you spend as much as you want on it, but it's a very high interest rate. So at around the $35,000 mark, so I had this like loan that I took out for the 40,000. I was approved for 45, and I was like, yeah, I'll get 45. I'll have a little left over for some nice tile. And around the $35,000 mark, I was like, oh, I'm out of money, and I only have like the box, I don't have anything else. And so I was just like, I think I had $16,000 left over in savings, I want to say, and then the rest I put on a credit card, and I had like $20,000 in credit card debt from that. And it didn't really click with me how much I was paying in interest, but I was like, well, I can't have a half-built house here. And so I ended up just building it on credit cards, and it's not something I would advise, but it did work out.
Yeah, it's something that most people who are like into personal finance or whatever would listen to and be like, that was dumb. No one should ever do that. But it clearly worked out.
It was a pretty common story for real estate investors, by the way.
Well, I feel like there's a lot. But I think the theme here is, like, I feel like lots of people I've talked to who are successful have taken risks to various degrees in their lives. Maybe not always, financing with a credit card, but maybe it's like where they put all their money in this one thing that everybody else thinks they're crazy, whatever. So I'm curious, like how, maybe then, but also now, how do you view risk? How are you like okay with certain types? Like how do you, like what lens do you view it through?
So back then I never really had money. And so everything was always a calculated risk, right? Like on the surface, it's like, oh yeah, you put your house on Airbnb. Like you didn't know anything about what you were doing. You put your studio and you bought this like house in LA thinking it would work. And then, you built this tiny house, but it was always like digestible steps, right? Like I had rented my house before in Kansas City, and then I was familiar with the concept of someone else staying in your house, right? And then I was like, well, Airbnb, what's the worst that can happen? They'll leave in 2 days if they suck, right? And then I had always done DIY stuff like in Kansas City when I was building the furniture. And so when I remodeled my studio, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm good at this. Like, I was always sharing it, and people were like, you should post about this. And I was like, oh, I don't know who would want to watch this, right? And then built the tiny house, and it was always like a gradual step up, right? So I always tell people, make sure that you scale accordingly when you're getting started in real estate, right? Don't go in and buy a $3.25 million mansion, which I have one in Scottsdale, but I didn't start there, right? I bought like 20 other properties before I got to that specific property, right? So always make sure that you're leapfrogging to like, a lily pad that's close by. You don't want to jump into another pond that you don't know anything about, right? So for me, now I've done so much and I've tried everything that I pretty much can jump into anything I want, right? Like short of maybe like building a skyscraper, can't do that. But, I've bought a hotel. I've bought a really luxury mansion house. I've built tiny houses. I've done rental arbitrage where I rent out apartments from landlords and then relist them on Airbnb. I've done flips. I've done new construction. I've done everything. So not everything, but like a lot. So at this point, it's fair for me to just go out and like take a big swing because it is risky to most people. But for me, it's not. I'm good at what I do. And this is like, it's second nature for me at this point.
How many properties do you have now?
I have about like 37 or 38 total doors. So I have like, I think 18 or 19 or 20 Airbnbs. I'd have to look at my thing. And then I have a 20 unit motel.
Can you give me some loose clumping of like what the, because I don't know if you're still doing it, but in the past you've done some glamping and then you have some traditional Airbnbs, and like, can you lump them together in categories, your properties?
Yeah. So let's see. I've got 14 single family homes that are all in like LA, Joshua Tree, Scottsdale, Tennessee, Virginia, Wisconsin, and a couple in Texas. So I would say 14 or so houses. And then I have a 20 unit motel. And then I have I have 4 rental arbitrage units. And that's again where I rent it from a landlord, relist it on Airbnb. So I don't own those properties, but they still cash flow for me.
When you do rental arbitrage, like, do you tell the people you're renting from you're doing this? Do you have to make sure there's something specific in the contract? Like, how do you even approach that?
Yeah, so back in the day, people didn't do that, and that was the wrong way to do it. Like when I had my first apartment, let me be very clear. Like, I went to the property management office and I was like, "Hey, do people Airbnb here? And the property manager or the leasing agent, she's like, yeah, I think so all the time. And I'm like, so you guys don't care? And they were like, no. And I was like, yeah, sounds good. So I was like, obviously not going to like really tap into that. With that said though, in retrospect, that person was making like $10 an hour. They don't care. They don't care about this five. They're just like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, so you don't care? Like, no. I was like, great. Not the right way to do that. Definitely not. Can't believe that one worked out for me, but it did. So I have seen a lot of people teaching it this way. Makes me angry because it's like your business can get shut down overnight. So nowadays we have a whole different process. Landlord 100% should and needs to be in the know about it. Otherwise they'll evict you and you'll spend $10,000, $15,000 on furniture and have nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. So we have to approach the landlord and really pitch them on this idea and help them understand that like they see it as a very risky thing, but I actually see it as not all that risky because I am their tenant and I am basically signing like a 2 or a 3 or in some cases a 4-year lease with that landlord. And I'm paying a higher deposit. I'm paying usually more in market rent to them. And the day-to-day people that are coming in and all that stuff, I'm the one dealing with them, not him or her. And I'm also the one that's dealing with all the repairs and all the maintenance and everything like that. So when you start to kind of break down those defense layers that any typical landlord will put up, and you start to give them a reason why you're a better partner than like a typical tenant that's going to come and destroy their place, you can get them on board. With all that said, as rainbowy and butterfly as I made it seem, you still got to pitch 100 landlords before you get one to say yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That is some very interesting insight there. Yeah. I was like, how do you, I'm trying to picture, how do you sex it up enough to where a landlord is going to say yes? But it's like you think about all their objections ahead of time and you try to design a deal to like address each of those or something.
Yeah. So what do you think their main objection is off the top of your head?
Property destruction.
Yeah.
Loud parties, crazy.
Great. So in that instance, they're like, I don't want parties. I'm like, I don't want parties either. Mm-hmm. If I have a party and they destroy the property, I won't be able to clean it up in time for the next guest. And if that guest comes into a dirty house, I now get a 3 or a 4-star review or a 1 or 2-star review. And that affects my listing and I can't make as much money as I could otherwise. Yeah. So you always have to make sure that when they say like, oh, I don't want that, he's like, yeah, same. I also don't want that. Oh, I want the stability. Okay, great. Well, how about this? I'll sign a 2-year lease. That's way more stable than signing a 1-year lease and then being trapped with that person that may not take care of your place like I will. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't want it to get dirty and the wear and tear. Great. Yeah. So my place, when it's under my management, it's going to be professionally cleaned 3 to 5 times a week. How many times do you think it's professionally cleaned with a 12-month tenant? Mm-hmm. Probably never, right? So you have to make them understand that you're not this like evil, greedy person that's like trying to destroy their place. It's like, yeah, it's a genuine partnership.
I mean, you are an evil, greedy person. You just hide
I am.
that.
I'm just, yeah, exactly.
Don't let them see that side.
I don't want them to know it's all under an LLC, which is like really funny because I read these TikTok comments. So people always get mad at Airbnb and they're like, I don't know, someone was just like ripping on yeah. Okay. So I made this thing about how hotels charge all these fees because
with the fridge, the $75 fridge.
You have to pay $75 to use the fridge. And I made a TikTok that's like, you guys get mad about Airbnb fees, but no one's making the TikToks about these $75 charges to use the fridge at a hotel. And someone's like, well, yeah, but they're not contributing to the housing crisis. And I'm like, oh, so they couldn't just convert the entire hotel into an affordable condominium like complex? That's not possible. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you just hate whenever the little guy is actually doing well doing this, but you love when the big conglomerate people make millions of dollars doing it. Yep. It's like so backwards because it's like most Airbnb hosts and most people that are in my space, we're all nice people that just like, like it is capitalism for sure, but we're not like, yeah, let's drive out tenants and like, let's raise housing prices. Like everyone thinks that we're high-fiving behind closed doors when we're all just entrepreneurs like that really love to host people.
Yeah. Most of those comments on that are, but Rob, cleaning fees.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's lots of, and also everybody complains about everything on the internet. That's just what the internet is.
That's what they do.
But there's a lot of, it's kind of crazy to me just how much landlord hate there is.
Oh my goodness, bro. Yeah. The cleaning fees is just like talk about that for a quick second. They get really angry at like $150 cleaning fee, right? So that's my cleaner coming in. They're making $150 and they're there for, let's say 3 hours. They made $50 an hour, which I think we can agree is like pretty awesome, right? They would rather pay no cleaning fee and exploit most of the time, Hispanic workers that are in the hotel industry, Hispanic, before anyone gets mad, exploit Hispanic workers getting paid $7.25 an hour to do like 100 rooms. Like they're on these tight deadlines. They have to clean out all these rooms, change out all these sheets, and abide by like, hotel management and paying everyone minimum wage. And I'm like, okay, so you get mad at me because I don't keep the cleaning fee. I pay all of it to my cleaners. They get mad at me for charging it and paying my people like a minimum wage, but they don't get mad at, and those are the same people that tend to get mad about the wage disparity in America, but they're fine with cleaners getting paid minimum wage.
Yep. Most people.
There's our viral TikTok right there.
I love it. I mean, most people, they're just fueled by negativity and they complain, and there is no capacity within them whatsoever to actually make a change or make a difference or do anything about it. They just like to voice their unhappiness about the world and maybe their lot in life, probably, on social media.
Yeah. But that's not what we're here to talk about. You got me all fired up now, but that is the world I live in.
Just here to poke the bear.
That's right.
My only job.
The Robert, if you will.
Robert. Okay, let's get back to a few things here. We started talking a little bit about Airbnb. So outline for me, what are, just broad level, what are all of your income streams?
Okay, so I've got Airbnb. I've got YouTube. I've got affiliates that are all driven, of course, from YouTube. I've got my education company. It's called Host Camp, where I teach people how to do Airbnb. I am also, I guess, content in general, because I'm also a podcaster.
It's like kind of a small.
Yeah, it's like there's a small up and coming podcast called Bigger Pockets.
Yeah, it's about real estate, right? I hope they make it.
Yeah, I think it might be. I think it might be the #1 real estate podcast in the world.
Like in a small like sub niche, but not.
Yeah,
like,
it's like the most downloaded, but it's like it's up and coming.
I'll look it up after this.
Yeah, check them out. So I podcast for that. So there's part of that. I'm sure I make money other ways too.
Would you say that there's also making money through real estate that's not Airbnb related? Would you compartmentalize those?
Oh right, yeah. Did I start with Airbnb?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. There's also real estate. So I'm also do like some flips or some renovations, stuff like that. So currently at this moment, I'm renovating a house I'm pseudo renovating it. I'm getting it ready to rock for a flipper who will then do a full on renovation. So I'll make like a $20,000 spread doing that. So I'm getting into flipping. It's not really what I'm good at. It's not really what I love to do, but it is fun. And for the sake of content, I was like, yeah, let's try it. Let's fail. Let's eat shit and see how it goes. And so far, that's how it's going to feel, how it's going sometimes. And then I also have a fund that I'm raising. We haven't launched it yet, but it's called Robuilt Capital. The idea is we're going to raise $20 million a year from investors and then go and deploy that into real estate. So that will be a pretty big one for me eventually.
Wow. Okay, so that is that's a lot. Me and you, we've been friends. We've known each other for a long time, but we've been friends, really closer friends, since you started the YouTube channel. And when did you start the YouTube channel?
January 7th of 2020.
2020. Okay, yeah.
A couple weeks before the pandemic.
Yeah. And at that point, it was just Rob doing some DIY projects on a YouTube channel.
Robuilt. That was the idea. I'm going to build things.
And here we are 3 years later, and it's very impressive. So congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
It is a very impressive progression. And it's funny, the YouTube thing, you would call me and ask me some like thoughts or advice or whatever, because I had my movie channel, which had done well. And then as I watched you start this channel, which really, I don't know what advice I could have given you.
Oh man, so much. Are you kidding me?
It was very, very different genre. You know, and I watched you start to get some success and stuff. And like, well, shit, maybe I should do that thing that's been in the back of my head and start my own. Like,
yeah, because you were thinking about doing it. You're like, yeah, I'm thinking about it.
And every time I would talk to you, you'd be like, what's wrong with, why are you still talking to me about my channel? Like,
go do it.
Yeah. So thank you for the push, the inspiration to.
Well, you gave me the first heart-to-heart, the first consultation lesson,
charge you for that.
Yeah. I owe you 7 figures. But it's kind of funny, man. Speaking of courses and education, I had this. Okay, so there was you had started Burger Fiction, and am I allowed to say that? Did you say that before? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. There's you had started that, and then I had this other buddy who I was friends with his brother in high school, but he started a YouTube channel as well. And so you guys were like these guys that had started YouTube, and I remember I reached out And you were like, yeah, bro, like, let's talk. Let's catch up or whatever. Because you were also my wedding photographer. So we knew each other from that. And I knew you were good with cameras in theory. And so I was like, okay, yeah, great. So you go and you help me out, and instrumental, like best one-on-one I've ever had, because it did structure how I thought about YouTube for the years to come. And then the other guy, I didn't really reach out to him, but I remember I posted on Facebook, and I was like, hey, guys, I started this YouTube channel, like, watch it, whatever. And he commented, he was like, dude, that's amazing, man. Congratulations. Like, I'm gonna shoot you a DM right now, and like, I think I can help you. And I was like, oh, great. Like I knew this guy too. Like, it wasn't like I just knew his brother. I went to high school, and, I always hung out with them. So anyways, I sent him, he sends me a message, or I sent him a message on Instagram. He's like, dude, congrats on the channel, man. Like, looks like you're crushing it. And I was like, yeah, I love it, dude. Thank you. I appreciate it. Obviously you're crushing it too. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, there's so many ways that like you can grow and make money with this thing. And then I was like, well, dude, yeah, like, tell me, let's hang out, or let's Zoom. Is that cool? And he was like, yeah, man, we could Zoom. But just a heads up, like I may have to consider charging a consultation fee. And I was like, oh, all right. How much is it? And he was like, $150. And I was like, yeah, all right, man. Yeah, let me talk to my wife about that, and I'll let you know. He's like, yeah, man, I can help you. Like, just talk to her and let me know what you decide. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, well, I think he could help me. And she's like, yeah, I know. But that was like, he snaked you a little bit. Like he commented on your thing, sent you the message, made you like, and I was like, yeah. And he made me feel like we were buds again. And he's like, yeah, let's do this. Anyways, kind of funny because I didn't end up taking the consultation because I was just like, all right, that's the wrong way to get clients.
Think of how high you could have gotten in life if you had, though.
Exactly. But in a way I did, because I remember being like, you can charge for this stuff? That's crazy. People will pay you for your knowledge. And so I made this video about like how to permit a tiny house in California. And I was like, hey, by the way, I do consultations now. So if you're interested, like, I'll leave a link in the description down below. And I was like, well, what should I charge? And I was like, well, $150 seems to be the going rate. So I create this, like, you can book me thing. I tie it with Stripe, and I end up getting like a booking, right? And then like that one is always just a good organic library one that I have. And so I would just start getting booked like once a week, and then twice a week, and then 3 times a week. This is all during the pandemic, like right when it was getting started. I'm working from home, and I'm like on the side doing these consultations, one at lunch, and then I would end work at 5, but really be done at like 3. And then I would take consultations at like 4, 5, 6. And I would book them out. Like there were some days I did like 6 back-to-back, like 1-hour consultations. Never freaking do that. But at that time, it was so much money. I mean, like $1,200 a day at the max that I was making. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I figured this out. And so in a weird way, it's kind of funny that the way he approached it actually ended up becoming my consultation business, because I was booked out 3 to 4 weeks in advance. And then I got consulted then I consulted a consultant who had a very successful business. He's like, by the way, you're too cheap. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you're booked 100% of the time, you're too cheap. You need to be booked 60 to 70% of the time. So I went to 300, then I went to 350, then I went to 400, then 500. And then I was consulting someone, and they're like, hey, dude, why don't you make a course? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, I bought this other guy's course for $2,000. And dude, it sucks compared to you. Like, your message, you're authentic, like the way you teach it, you're so funny. He's like, you need to make a course. And I was like, well, what would I charge? And he was like, $2,000. And I was like, get out of here with that. He's like, okay, thank you. Consultation over, whatever. And he inceptioned me, right? And I was like, well, it would be nice if I didn't have to repeat the same answer 8 times a day for 1 hour at a time, because everybody wanted the same thing. They all wanted to build a tiny house in California or an ADU, right? So that eventually led way to Host Camp, which ended up becoming way more than a course, like a mentorship program. I've got 2,000 students in it now. They're all crushing it. They all make more money than me on Airbnb, it feels like. But that's why I love it, because I empower people to do it. And funny aside here, he actually reached out to me like 3 weeks ago and was like, hey man, I got your number from my friend or whatever. And he was like, got time, got a second, I need to chat with you about like building this A-frame or whatever, And then I just didn't respond. And then like the next day he's like, hey, by the way, willing to pay for your time, just let me know. And then I was like, oh man, yeah, I don't consult anymore, I'm sorry. And it wasn't like I wasn't being petty. I just genuinely don't like.
Maybe a little bit petty.
Like it did feel good. No, you know, and it's good. I play pickleball with him now, and he's friendly. It's nice. Like, but I told that to my wife and my buddy, and they're like, "You said that, and you didn't like you hang out with him?" It's like, yeah. They're like, "Is that awkward?" I was like, honestly, it's all not out of sight, out of mind. But it is kind of funny, like that little thing. Most people would have been like, "Oh, okay, I'm just not going to do it, whatever." But it did spark this idea of like you can sell your brain.
Yeah. Well, there was a period of time where I would like text you or like, hey, can we chat this week or something? You'd be like, oh, this week I got consultations every time slot and stuff. And I think, and maybe you've changed your opinion on it, but I think what that model, create like a YouTube channel or create a Twitter account or get some kind of online audience and then monetize it through consultation is like an awesome model for at least people to start. You don't have to continue. It's not scalable. It does take up a ton of your time, but you can make serious money.
I mean, it's not scalable if you are set on making a lot of money. Like, remember, I was making, at my very last job, I was making $110,000. All right? That was good. Like, I was happy with that. And these consultations, like, were bringing me, like, I was making effectively, like, the average $300 an hour, 5 hours a day. So it got to the point where I was like, I can't go to bed at midnight anymore and then work at 9 in the morning. So I ended up doing like 3 because I was like, I'll just do 3 of these. That's like $900, like whatever. And if I did that 20 times a month, like the 20 working days, it's 18 grand. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Right. And so I was just like, got to this point, you know, the other impetus, if you will, was like, okay, well, at this job, I'm getting paid $50 an hour. Because that's what equates to 110K. At this job, I'm getting paid $300 an hour, and I only have to work 3 hours a day to make like way more, you know? So it got to the point where very quickly I was like, why am I still working this full-time job? And my wife was like, yeah, you should quit. And I was like, yeah, I should. It's just, I don't know. It's like healthcare. It's $2,000. And so finally, before my first launch, before like my first course thing, I was like, I'm going to quit. And my wife was like, yeah, I know you've been saying this for 2. I was like, today's the day. And so I sent an invite to my bosses. And I was like, I'm going to tell them this. It's been good. I appreciate you guys. Or, you know, swipe everything off the desk. I'm like, I'm out of here, suckers, you know. And open the Zoom. They hop on. And they're like, all right, what's going on? And I was like, and I start crying. I'm like crying my eyes out. And then they're like, is everything okay? And then I was like, yeah, I'm just quitting. And they're like, oh my God, thank God. Yeah, why are you still here? We could all see, you know. They're like, of course you are. You're so much better. You know, like, you're obviously good at this stuff. I was like, I know. And they're like, and then like my other boss, he was like, well, are you going to be okay? Like financially? And I was like, yeah, I make so much more money doing the other stuff. And they were like, you'll be fine. And I was like, yeah, I guess, yeah, I don't know why I needed that cry. But anyways, I get through it. I stop crying. I'm like, thank you guys. You guys were the best bosses I ever had. I close the laptop and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm free. I really did feel free. And it was at that moment where I was like, being 9 to 5 is like the most constricting, crazy concept in the world. Like I cannot fathom the idea of ever working a 9 to 5 because I didn't know until I quit, until it was like all the stakes were all, you know, very high. Everything was on the line. And the only thing stopping me from making millions of dollars was the fact that I was working at an ad agency. And as soon as I realized that, there's no going back.
Man, I love that. That is so awesome. Yeah, and I have a lot of the same thoughts about 9 to 5 and stuff. I can't speak to the same feeling to the same degree about when I left to do the wedding photography business. But when I left the wedding photography business, when I finally spun it down to do YouTube and stuff full time, it was just like the biggest weight release. I think mine was mostly being burned out doing something for like a decade, and then finding something else that you have total control of your time. So you were doing this consulting stuff, which is still trading your time for money. I'm curious, what is your thought on that? Looking back, like doing things like that, what stage of life do they fit into? What's your opinion on it now? Trading time for money.
Look, obviously, my consultation rate now, for reference, is like $3,000 an hour. And I don't even like, this isn't like, I say that as that's what I value my time. So I don't even take it. Like we have people that offer it. Sometimes they're like, all right, if that's, I'm like, oh, just do like watch my channel, like learn for free. I really don't want to do this. Right. Like I'm very anti-consulting now. If someone is like, I will Venmo you right now for an hour of your time, I won't do it because I'm so against that concept for sure. But that's where I'm at in life. And that is not where other people are in life. And I think that you have to sort of learn the hard way not to trade your time for money. I think that that's what it comes down to is like, you just have to kind of have that moment where you're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore. So obviously, like $3,000, if someone's like, yeah, here it is. Like, it's not like I would do that and then be like, no, I hate that. Like, oh no, my $3,000, what am I going to spend this on? Like, obviously I'd be like, all right, let's go like, buy a couch for my Airbnb or someone like that. Right. Obviously, but I'm just so against the thought of it that it just would never happen. And so I think going back to what I said, consulting and it is not scalable, but that doesn't mean that it's the wrong move because as you could see, like I was making, I don't know, what's 18,000 times 12, $200,000 a year working effectively 3 hours a day. That's an amazing life. That's the most amazing life. People work their whole life and don't make $200,000, right? So I think if you're cool with this idea of like, yeah, I mean, I'm good with 200K, consult, great. If you're the type of person that's like, no, I'm going to be a millionaire. I want to make millions of dollars. I want to have $50 million as my net worth when I die. Whatever that goal you have, you can't do it. It is not scalable, right? That's where you start to have to hire people to kind of do the things that you do, right? So that's why I moved out of consulting and eventually grew HostCamp, my education platform, because now I've got different students who have risen through the ranks, if you will. They're my coaches. I'm still like the main guy. I still do my coaching side of it. But for the most part, I've got a COO now. I've got like a copywriter. I've got like a whole team of people that do it for me. And no, it's not passive at all, but it is not me doing everything. And so that's kind of where I'm at these days. So I definitely think consulting is the taste, if you will. Like, yeah, hey, this is good money. If you're like, but it's not enough, then you're going to have to get out of consulting eventually.
So top tip, if you want to have a consultation from Rob and not spend $3,000, set up a podcast and invite him on it.
That's right. Well, hey, you gave me that free lesson. So I owe you 7 figures of consulting.
I like that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a few things you just said, which I really want to dive into. How big is your staff right now?
Okay, so I've got on the content side a full-time editor. We're about to hire another full-time editor, camera person there. And then on my other company, it's really just me and the founders. And then we have, I think, like one operational person. So no employees, I think. Maybe like one on that one. And then on HostCamp, I have my COO and then probably like that are actually like on the staff of it. 4, 6, like 12 people. And then I've got like maybe 10 coaches in the program as well.
Wow. Okay. So quite a few. And also all the things you just said, you kind of talking about like becoming a millionaire, making $1 million, kind of that path towards that. What would, looking back on everything you've experienced and all the things you know that you know now, what is the fastest route to go from zero to millionaire that you can think of?
I think it's got to definitely be monetizing your best skill. And so it doesn't, it basically, if you're trying to, like, are you talking about millionaire net worth or millionaire monthly, like yearly revenue?
Either one. Give me both if you can.
Well, if it's net worth, I think you can get there relatively easily not easily. It's hard work. It's not hard. How about that?
The easy option only.
Yeah. I think real estate, I think that's always going to be true. Like you can go out and you can do what's called like a BRRRR, where you go and you buy a house, you renovate it, build a bunch of equity in it, go to a bank, and then basically do what's called a cash out refi and pull all that money back out and then keep the equity in there. And you could do that like several times in a year or many times in a year if you have the capital to do so. So real estate is by far the easiest way. Again, not easy, but like the most straightforward path to being a millionaire. Most people that I know that are millionaires, real estate makes up some part of their portfolio, but like the richest people I know or the wealthiest, they're real estate people. And so like, if you take, for example, like my stuff, like I didn't even realize I was a millionaire. I was like at a gas station with my best friend, business partner, And he was like, oh, how close do you think you are? I was like, I don't know. Let's add it up. And so I like added up all the houses that I bought. This was around the pandemic. And I was like, well, I guess this one has actually gone up 200,000 and this one has actually gone up 300,000 and this one has gone up 4. Shit, I think I'm a millionaire. He's like, yeah, I guess so. And I was like, dang, which doesn't really mean a lot. Like, honestly, a net worth of $1 million just means on paper, I have it. If I sold all my properties, I could have $1 million in the bank, but then I would lose all the cash flow that comes from them. So
we've also had that conversation, by the way. And I'm like, you're a millionaire.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah.
Like,
and I was like, I don't think so. I mean, I don't really have it. Yeah,
sure you are.
For sure. And okay, so that's like net worth.
Yep.
From a monetary like income standpoint. If you want to make $100,000 a month, or I guess like $800 or $80,000 a month, you basically have to sell your skill, but not be the person that's doing the skill. You have to have an entire team of people that are doing that skill for you, and you are sort of like the business head manager of it. Like I got a buddy who is a landscaper. He's got 3 different routes, and he's like making $10,000 profit on each route. So he's making $30,000, basically a month doing it. I'm like, why don't you do that 3 more times? He's like, well, it's just, it takes me so much time to manage the people and do this. And now I'm like, no. You're spending way too much time in the weeds, ironically. I was like, you need to hire a manager that manages those 3 so that you can then go and focus on building 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Guess what? If you do that 6 more times, you're gonna make $1 million a year just from your landscaping business. So to get started, you have to sell your time and you have to be good at it. But to be honest, you really don't have to be that good at the skill. You just have to hire people that are good at the skill, sell their time, and make your cut from doing that.
Yeah, I feel like there's, in the grand scheme of people and skills, there's lots of people who are good at things, but there's lots of people who either don't share or have an easily accessible way to get to those skills that they have. So if you are one of the few people who puts those skills out there, even if they're not as good as someone else's, there's still probably an entire addressable market for you to like sell.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know when you're like ready, or how do you even know what is that skill to sell?
Well, I mean, it's just whatever you like to do, the way I think of it is honestly probably relatively similar to YouTube. Like when someone's like, should I start a channel? What should I talk about? Right. And I always tell people, like, what is the thing that you talk about the most in your inner circle of friends and family that immediately bores everybody? Like, what is the thing that people are like, oh yeah, like Andy does this? For me, it was Airbnb. I always talked about Airbnb all the time because I'd be like, oh man, guys, guess what? And they'd be like, oh, we don't care. I'm like, all right, that's fine. And so like, I would always like be the Airbnb guy. So obviously like, well, funny enough, that's not even what I started the channel on. I started the channel doing DIY stuff. And then, the stuff that actually took off and went viral was all the Airbnb stuff. And I remember just being like super bummed about it because I was like, dang it. But that was the thing that I was really good at talking about. That was the thing that I was really good at. That was the thing that I really liked. There's no sense in being a millionaire doing something you don't like to do because money won't solve problems for you. You'll have it. It'll be great to spend. It'll be very temporary hits of dopamine to buy things, but it's not going to be like if I'm not an engineer. So if I went and started an engineering firm and it made me like $10 million a year, but I was like in the weeds and I hated it, it doesn't matter. I can make $100 million a year and it would be awful, right? If it required my full-time attention, right? So I think you should really try to get into something that you would love to do full-time. This also goes back to like, remember I said I wasn't good. I was not that good at copywriting, at advertising. I was good, but I would never be great. Well, it was pretty clear that I was going to be great at Airbnb and real estate. Like that was something that immediately was like, oh, I can be great at this. So I would say whatever you're great at or whatever you think you could be great at, that's the thread you need to pull, not the stuff that pays the bills, I think. And it is a little risky. It's not like, if you're starting a side business doing something, it most likely won't work out immediately.
Yeah. So what about, let's talk about that risk a little bit. Like there's obviously the time risk and maybe a money risk, a risk of failure. How, if you're somebody who listens to Rob talking like, I want, some of that lifestyle, I want some of that type of money, I want, some of those decisions in my life, but they're in a 9-to-5 job and they're doing the normal thing that they're expected to do. How do you get the inspiration, find the inspiration? How do you get the motivation? How do you take that next step? Like, how do you muster that up?
So first and foremost, you need to surround yourself around other people that want what you want. Okay. So if you want to be a millionaire, do you want to go hang out with clerks at a grocery store? Or do you want to go hang out with millionaires? Right. And I'm not talking about from like a societal level. I'm talking about like, I want to be a millionaire. If you want to be a real estate millionaire, do you want to go hang out with real estate millionaires? Or do you want to go hang out with like rec league volleyball players? You want to hang out with the millionaires. There is no way around it. You have to be around other people that want what you want. And that's why when you and I were starting our channel, we texted like 1,000 times a day. Mm-hmm. Like Ash would be like, oh, you're texting Andy again, your boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. Because we literally texted all the time because all I cared about was talking to other people that like were doing and grinding in the same way on the YouTube stuff, right? So same is going to go on whatever that passion is. If you're an entrepreneur, you got to hang out with entrepreneurs because everyone will tell you that you're crazy, especially at your 9-to-5 job. No one in the 9-to-5 world really takes risks. Right? They have this insanely comfortable salary. There's always the risk of getting fired. But for the most part, you can perform at like 40, 50% of your capacity and still get your paycheck. There's no risk involved with that. There's a lot of risk when you don't have a weekly or bi-weekly salary, and the money that comes in the bank account is directly tied to your performance and how well you're crushing your side hustle, right? And so innately, the people who don't understand that will not make you feel comfortable about that decision. They might be like supportive, like, oh, good for you, and then talk crap behind your back, but they'll never really be the support system that you need. So you need to be around people that are doing what you're doing. That's like the first tip I would say. Second tip is find someone who didn't do it, that wish that they had, that's maybe 45, 50, 55, 60, and really soak in their regret. Because there are a lot of people out there that are like, I wish I would have done it, but I never did, right? Why not? When you talk to people like that, it kind of hurts you for them that they never got to take their chance. And so I think it's like a perspective thing to be like, you're young, you got really all the time in the world. And this is especially true if you're listening to this at home, everybody. If you're young, like let's say you're under 30, you don't have kids, and you're not married, you can do anything. You can do anything. It gets harder every single time you add one of those things to it, right? It gets harder when you buy a house. It gets harder when you get married. It gets harder when you have a kid, like exponentially harder with each one of those. So if you don't have any of those, I don't ever want to hear you complain about being too busy, because I swear to you, you are not. Nobody is too busy.
Yeah, I think the golden handcuffs thing is real. Like 9-to-5 jobs, people can do them and be perfectly happy and satisfied in life, and that's fine. But for people who want more than that, if they're not careful, it just becomes that comfort money. It's like you said, you can do 25% effort, 40% effort, mm-hmm. and very safely and comfortably just get a paycheck, every week or every other week, and then go home and watch Netflix and receive your paycheck. Spend your weekends out with your friends, and then just go through life, and then it's over, and you wonder, did I do the things I wanted to do, or whatever?
Dude, I always think about that, man. I always just think about like, I don't know. It's crazy to me that people like, well, when I'm like, oh yeah, like I text people and then they're like, oh, sorry, I was busy at work or whatever. And it's like crazy to me that there are people that are like, the majority watching, sorry guys, that are just like at work for 8 hours a day and they can't do anything about it.
And it's most of their waking hours doing something that most, I think, if they are asked to respond honestly, would say that they don't love. And yet they're still choosing because of the level of comfort, because they're averse to change, because they're scared of what might happen if they decide to do the other thing. They stay in the comfort zone, even though it's not fulfilling or satisfying or making them happy, whatever. Yeah. And then they spend almost their entire life and most of their waking hours in that life doing that thing. So nothing wrong with the 9-to-5 job.
Of course not. I did it for many years.
If you have that feeling inside of you, there is something wrong with you not doing something about it.
That I 100% agree. I always say that. I'm like, look, if you want to work 9-to-5, if you want to do that, like my sister, she's an air traffic controller. She makes good money doing that. She thinks I'm crazy. I think she's crazy, right? Because I'm like, well, you have one stream of income. You could lose it overnight. She thinks I'm crazy because I don't have a job. That's fine, whatever. But she loves it and she wants to do that. Boom. If you love it, you want to do it, no problem. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 100%, man. If you're like, if you have thought to yourself, this can't be it, or is this it? then you are not destined for the 9-to-5 world, I think.
Man, yeah, that is like, and we only have one life, and it's so finite, it's so short. We're little blips of space dust, in the big scheme of things. So if you've ever had those thoughts, it's like, please, at some point, just try to act on it a little bit, or see where those thoughts go. Now, you talked about like getting some motivation to start asking those questions, start trying things, and one of the your tips is go find people who are doing those things, which is fantastic advice, because you go to the bar every weekend, you're with people who they're at the top limit of their ambition. They're going to keep you where you are at the top level of that's the same level. And then if you try to go do those things, they're going to, maybe out on the surface say, hope it all works out great, but then secretly hope you fail so you can be just like them.
That's called Schadenfreude. It is the when you feel good that someone is failing.
But if you hang out with the other people, they're going to be talking about all this crazy stuff. They're hyper motivating. You're like, I want to do those things, and I want to be like these people. So how do you find those people?
Yeah, that part, I don't know if I have tactical answers. I mean, I would ultimately say this, like, content is not going to be right for everybody, but the fact that I put myself out there and the fact that I always made content about what I was doing obviously led to a lot of what I have today, but it also connected me with so many people that are like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing that too. Like I'd love to connect. And so I think posting about just putting it out there that you do this thing, right? Like, hey, I'm starting this like landscaping business, whatever. Like, I think it's very important to make it known to the public so that people in your life can reach out and be like, oh, I'm doing that too. Or, hey, I've got an uncle that's doing that. But you have to ask for it, right? Like, hey, I'm doing this. Does anybody know anyone in this field? I want to make friends in it. There are meetups. That's like very easy to do. You could actually host a meetup. You can go to meetups. Like, there are so many ways you can do it. In real estate, there's 1,000 ways you can do it. You can go to conferences. Conferences are a huge one. You can invest in yourself, be a part of a community. Like a lot of people in host camp, they're in a group of 2,000 hyper-focused short-term rental operators. That's hard to find anywhere else, right? There are free Facebook groups. There are free meetups. It's really when you start paying that you start seeing the caliber of person that you meet go up, because they are also paying and they're also very serious about excelling in the thing that they are. And I'm not just talking about joining a course or a program. I'm talking about like a conference. A conference is $1,000 ticket. That is very expensive to a lot of people. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to spend $1,000. But you can meet an investor there. You can meet a partner there. You can meet a friend there. We went to Vid Summit last year. I've been 2 times. I've met a lot of cool friends, like a lot of people. I've met some of my heroes. I've talked to people. I've gotten ideas that have made me a lot more money than that ticket that I spent. So you have to pay to play a lot of the times, but there are free ways to do it.
I think putting yourself out there is fantastic advice. Because I have met quite a few great friends who also do the YouTube thing or also do the crypto thing or whatever. And it's a lot easier to cut through the noise and cut through the crowd and find the people who also want those same things, because they're putting themselves out there and doing the same things. So that though is scary. Mm-hmm. How do you get past the fear of like putting yourself out there and looking stupid or failing publicly or all those emotions I'm sure you might have?
Maybe you find like the top 5 creators in that space and then scroll all the way back to their first video and watch it. Because it really is that way. Some people, it's funny when they remove their first videos from their channel, because I'm like, why would you take that down? That's like the glow up, man. Like, I'll always leave my first videos on there because I want people to see how bad it was and how good it is. And I want people to be like, wow, like I could have the same trajectory if I just did it consistently. I was listening to a TikTok, which is always like factually accurate, about like if you just spent, oh man, what was it? Like 18 hours a day or something like that. No, sorry, 18 minutes a day doing a skill.
If you just spend 18 hours a day doing a skill, you will be so good at it.
If you spent 18 minutes a day doing a skill, by the end of the year, you will have put in like 22 hours or something like that, and you would be you would be in the top 90% of people, or the top 95% of people that did that skill. That's so true. The same thing with like consistency in general. It's all practice makes perfect, right? My first stuff sucked. I love it, but I still love how much it sucked because I just love that I did it. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I did actually have a couple of channels that I started before this one, before Robuilt, that I never even launched officially because I like watched them and one was a DIY one, funny enough, and I was like, this sucked. And then one was like, I think it was called the Ride Over Sharing, where I interviewed Uber drivers, also sucked. It's kind of crazy that I was like so scared to post it because like the first thing was this DIY thing. And I was like, oh, no one wants to watch this. This sucked. But it sucked just as bad as my first video. And had I just posted that, who knows? Like I could have had a 5-year head start.
Yeah, maybe you can speak to this a little bit too. I think that's awesome advice. But also, I think you probably agree with me here. You feel those feelings. You had that fear. Then you put yourself out there and it's nowhere near as bad as you thought it was going to be. Like, was that your experience? How did you feel when you first did it?
Yeah, I liked it. I always did. I was like, yeah, it's cute. Like, like not great. I was obviously emulating people like Homemade Modern Builds. Like I like those guys a lot. And so I was like, yeah, I'll just like try to do that. And it wasn't really like that. The camera was way worse. The camera work was all bad. But I was still like, yeah, I like it, I always liked it. I was never like, this is like, I was like, yeah, I kind of went into YouTube thinking my first 20 videos are going to suck. So let's just get through those. And then the fun starts. And that was my mindset. Like, yeah, it's going to suck. Doesn't matter. Boom, posted it. Oh, it kind of sucks. Well, great. Oh, it's cool. It's funny. I made someone laugh in that one spot, whatever. Right. But it's kind of funny because the second video I ever posted is one of my most watched videos. I think it's got like 700,000. Yeah, the shade sail. I taught people how to hang a shade sail with a DIY shade sail with a cable railing, and I think I've gotten 3,000 subscribers from it. I've made $7,000 from it. I've gotten 700,000 views from it. We can check the stats in a second, but it's kind of funny because I'll meet people at like conferences or at like real estate meetups, and they're like, dude, I found you from that shade sail video.
You're the shade sail guy.
And I was like, wow, that's crazy that's how you found me. And they're like, yeah, I subscribed. And it's like funny that they stuck around because my channel ended up not being that at all.
Yeah. I think it was a fairly, if you're going to pivot, you did a pretty good pivot where it was kind of going adjacent because you kind of showed like you building these houses, you're doing these Airbnbs and kind of building, Robuilt, DIY.
Yeah.
And then as you gain more and more traction doing that, now you got this whole Airbnb crowd with you. And so
yeah.
I think it was a pretty smart transition. Let's, here towards the end, let's talk about a couple things. One, doing all this, building these businesses, putting yourself out there, trying to make all this money. How important is having like a reason or a why or like some kind of mission statement? Do you have that?
Probably not. I don't know. I'm figuring that out. I think that's always the thing is like, oh man, he makes like good money. He's got it figured out. I'm like, not really. Like when you walk in the door of my front house, there's like a mat, that you wipe your feet on, and it's a Christmas mat. We're currently in August. Yeah. We never took it down, right? So it's like, I'm not all that. If anyone just looked around in my studio, we've set it up to look relatively cute. But it's pretty messy. Even like you walking in, it's pretty clean to what it was like a week ago. And the only reason I cleaned it up was because I was doing another podcast in here. So I really don't have things all that figured out, and I think that's okay. I think I'm good with it. Like I like what I'm doing. I like that I'm figuring it out. I'm slowly turning the corner, and that to me is really the progress that I want. But the deeper reason for all of this is my parents are immigrants. They came to America. My dad was a doctor in Mexico, was not able to transfer his license here. And he tried and failed because he didn't know English. So he couldn't pass those, like, I don't know, whatever the transfer test was. And he worked his whole life at minimum wage, being the smartest guy that I ever knew. And then my mom also like ended up falling into a really good career here in the States as well. And they did the ultimate sacrifice for me. So my why deep down is always going to be like, I just want to make sure that my family never has to worry about money. Being my direct family and my parents, I want to buy them a house. I want to buy my mom a car. I want to buy my dad a watch. Little things that aren't really like they wouldn't care about at all, but things that I'm like, yeah, I just want them to have the things that they wanted for me. I have the things they wanted for me. I want them to have the things that I want for them, I guess.
I like that. What is Robuilt going to be doing, or what is everything you're building now going to look like in 5 or 10 years?
10 years? See, this is crazy. Because if you had told me that I'm where I'm at now, just 2 years after I quit my full-time job, I would not have believed you. You know, like if it's just like my life changes every month, it feels like, in a good way. Like I have life-changing events now regularly where I'm like, my wife and I have to remember where we came from, because I'll be like, oh yeah, hey, this insane thing happened. And my wife will be like, no, it's cool. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool, I guess. And then we're like, wait a minute. What? We just made this, or we just did this, or like this just happened, right? So we had a crazy year with like YouTube blowing up, and then we shot an HDTV pilot, and then Bigger Pockets came around, and like all this stuff happened to where it's really easy to lose focus. So I guess it's like nothing is impossible anymore. And so it's even hard to like say like, well, in 5 years I see this, because I'm like, I don't know, it's probably something that I deem impossible right now, which is obviously like not true. So I don't know, let's say like 1,000 units.
Do you think most of those will still be, you think Airbnb will still be a huge part in
I think it'd
5
be
or 10
pretty,
years?
well, yes, in a different way. I think I'll own more kind of large scale developments that are like glamping units that will be on Airbnb, but will also be its own like brand, and almost like an Airbnb hotel. It's kind of funny. I'm gonna be the guy the guy that the TikTokers don't hate. I'm so excited for that transition. the rich mogul that no one even thinks about.
I like that a lot. So on this topic of Airbnb, I do have some Airbnb trivia for you.
Okay, great.
Who started Airbnb and what year?
Brian Chesky. I'm gonna say it was like 2011.
Okay. Brian Chesky and
I don't know the other guy. No one knows the other guy.
Joe Gebbia.
Joe Gebbia.
2008.
2000. See, I almost said
You're
2008.
You're close.
Yeah.
You got that. I call it a half. You got that.
A halfie?
Right.
That was actually my nickname back in high school. Carry on.
How many Airbnb listings are there worldwide?
Ooh. Oh, man. That is a hard one. I'm going to say 3 million.
Half right again. 6 million.
Okay. All right.
If you go to...
That's my goal in 10 years, for all of them to be mine.
If you go to their headquarters, the Airbnb headquarters, which bonus question, where is that?
San Francisco.
Okay. Easy. I'll give you an easy one. If you go to the headquarters, what will $24 buy you?
An air mattress.
A tour of the headquarters.
Oh,
do
yeah.
$24 HQ tours.
Wait, hold on. So you go to the Airbnb, and the thing that everyone hates the most are fees. And they're like, hey, if you want to actually walk around, we'll charge you $24.
Beautiful irony. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. See, it's hard to defend them sometimes.
How many tiny houses are listed? How many castles and how many tree houses?
I'll probably go like 200,000.
Give me each one. Give me a guess.
Oh, okay. All right. So then I'll go 3,000 castles. Tree houses, I'll go 25,000. And tiny homes, I'll go 50,000.
Well, castles, you were almost right. It's 4,000.
Okay. What did I say?
3,000.
3,000. Okay.
Tree houses, you were off by a factor of 10. 2,400 tree houses.
Oh, okay.
And tiny houses, also a bit lower. 14,000 tiny houses.
I was a third right. A 30.
30. So to end this, I do have some, at the very end here, some rapid fire questions for you.
Great.
Just short answers or whatever the first gut reaction is. What is one of the top things you use to decide what your next property is going to be?
How much I want a vacation there?
Ooh, I like that. What has been your biggest challenge on this entire journey?
Hiring people and not doing it all myself.
I already asked you that, actually. Why are you house flipping right now?
Just for the sake of learning more real estate stuff so I can teach people.
And given this was a hoarder house, would you do a hoarder house again?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Great content.
Is Airbnb dying?
For some people, yes. For the people that are actually reinvesting into their properties to create like one-of-a-kind experiences, which is what I'm doing very heavily right now, no.
Where is the best place to put your money right now?
In all investments?
Sure.
Crypto miners. No.
Yeah.
Dang it, I shouldn't have said that. Now you're going to get so many bots in the comments. Real estate.
Actually, we should. I'm going to add another 30 minutes to this podcast. Let's start talking about crypto stuff for a minute.
Real estate, no doubt. No doubt.
Real estate and Time Wonderland.
No. Memo. W memo. Wrapped.
What is the greatest movie of all time?
Interstellar.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that answer. Chipotle is overrated.
No? What's wrong with you? Is that a statement or is that a question?
Just want to get a gut reaction to
You're
it.
insane. Get out of my studio. We were good until then. I will not allow this to air.
And on that bombshell, this has been fun, Rob.
This has been Andy's Friends.
Yes.
The rebrand of your new podcast.
Welcome to Andy's Friends. Not a podcast. It's just a casual hangout.
It's a friend cast. Just us hanging out.
Friendcast.com /
XYZ.
Yes. .xyz / your friend Andy - Robuilt for $100 off your next Friendcast from Andy's Friends.
Well, hey, thanks for having me on. I've been begging for the better part of a year, and you're like, well, sorry, man, I'm kind of booked up here, got a whole lineup, and you finally gave me the time, my time to shine.
I finally penciled you in.
Hey, every so often, a blind pig finds a truffle. You know what I mean?
Are truffle pigs blind usually?
Yeah, well.
Oh, wait, I get it now.
It's blind, so it may find a truffle.
But they are mostly scent based on this, so I feel like a blind pig would actually have a pretty decent chance.
Have you seen Pig, starring Nicolas Cage?
No.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Legitimately great movie. I just saw it like a year and a half ago. Go watch it.
Okay.
And that goes for all of you. Go watch it. I'm going to say it to every camera. That one, and that one, and that one. But go watch Interstellar first, Into the Spider-Verse second, Across the Spider-Verse third, then Pig.
Get yourself a Chipotle burrito and watch Pig.
If you're trying to cut out carbs, get a Chipotle bowl.
Ooh, is that the top tip these days?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, friends, you heard it here first. Chipotle Bowl. Thanks again for being here. And thank you very much, listeners, for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye. High five.